Hallelujah. You go ahead.
Shalom. Yahweh Hashem Yahushua Brakatham to the brothers. Shalom. Yahweh Shema Alathan Bahashem Yahushua to the sisters. A priest and officer, a warrior, Allah of the Isupk, which started off 125th 1 West Harlem, New York in 1969 under the commanding General Yohana. Isupk is the home of the truth, you understand? So what we deal with in the world constantly is brothers and sisters that choose to go the route of addictions, such as, of course, drugs. Well, drugs, really. You know, yesterday they had this so-called national getting high day called 420. But I'm here to tell you that drug dealing and taking drugs is indeed witchcraft, an abomination unto the Most High God. Real quick. 1 second. Salaki, y'all bear with me one moment. Salaki, if you'll go to Exodus chapter 22, verse 20.
Good. Exodus chapter 22, verse 20. He that sacrificeth unto any god, save unto Yahweh only, he shall be utterly destroyed.
Okay, let me explain. When you take smoke and you inhale it into your body, that was the origin of that was long ago, was to get you to see visions and to see so-called deities and see they used to do these things and hallucinate and see visions, supposedly, right? And they use this as forms of divination. That's the root of it. So now here today, we have brothers and sisters in the world that choose to microdose shrooms and things of that nature and, have a mellow, good time and just feel so free and good and see things. And now supposedly they can see spirits and they can sense people's emotions and do things of that nature, right? So we got to look at how these drugs even got here. Because the so-called black man, Native Indian man, and Hispanic man, prior to slavery, they didn't have means of transporting drugs to this country. They didn't have means of transporting heroin and crack, and you understand, cocaine, which they derive crack from, you understand. They didn't have the means of all of the marijuana, that was grown in other countries and brought here to be grown, to be sold as, these psychedelic drugs that brothers and sisters want to partake of. So anytime you're doing this, unknowingly what you're doing, you sacrificing unto idols, which is an abomination unto the Most High God. Salakia, sir, if you read that one more time.
Exodus chapter 22, verse 20. He that sacrifices unto any god, save unto Yahweh only, he shall utterly be destroyed.
He shall utterly be destroyed. Because when you do these things and when you are a practitioner of these things and the cause of these things, you pretty much being a sorcerer or a wizard or a witch, you understand? But so like it real quick, if you'll go to Exodus chapter 22 in verse 18, because this is what the Most High God had to say about, things of this nature and brothers and sisters in the world that choose to go this route. If you are, even if it's a so-called incense with the purpose and intent of bringing you prosperity, money incense, billionaire, millionaire incense, right? Or candles for that matter, birthday candles. All of these things are sacrificed unto idols. So what do you think putting smoke and putting other things into your body that cause a hallucinogenic or psychedelic effect to your brain is doing? It's doing the exact same thing that these sacrifice unto idols are doing. When you breathe over your incense or you breathe over your candle with the purpose of bringing you more prosperity or love or whatever the case may be, right? You're sacrificing unto idols. But Salaki, real quick, if you'll go ahead and read that, sir.
Come. Exodus chapter 22, verse 18. Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live.
Thou shalt not, Salaki, thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. These are the oracles of the Most High God. Salaki, if you'll read that again, sir.
Come. Exodus chapter 22, verse 18. Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live.
There it is. Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. So if you partaking of any of these things and you being swayed into these things, you are a witch if you're a woman, and if you're a man, you're a wizard. You're doing this is witchcraft, and this is actually sacrificing tribute unto other deities. This is the origin of these things. But just like with everything else of this world and of this society, we got to look at the cause and how is this happening, right? How is it that heroin is being brought into the United States? Did the so-called black man have the financial means to go and mass produce this or get a mass harvesting of these things in other countries to bring over here to the Americas? Did the so-called Hispanic man have the means to do so? So you got to realize that all of these things that are being pushed upon our people for psychological warfare is what it is. And I gotta stop right there. I gotta touch on the fact that what it is biological and psychological warfare. If something is altering your mind and your ideas, you clouding your judgment, that's all a tactic of warfare. If someone can get you to be chemically dependent on a chemical that they supply, well, what do you think the pharmaceutical industry does for the most part with the so-called opioid addiction? Does anyone know the answer to that question? What do you think that is when the pharmaceutical industry is constantly pushing the opioids, and they will push and prescribe to you so many different things? You can go to the hospital with a minor headache, and they're gonna prescribe to you so many different opioids to solve the issue of that headache, right? This is not something that's necessarily needed. You get what I'm saying? That's a chemical dependency to then pour into a financial revenue. You understand? But Salaki, was there any more on that, sir?
That's it.
Come on, Khan. Salaki, real quick. If you'll go to Leviticus chapter 20. Chapter 20, verse 1.
Leviticus chapter 20, verse 1. And Yahweh spake unto Moses, saying, verse 2, again, thou shalt say to the children of Israel, whosoever he be of the children of Israel, or of the strangers that sojourn in Israel, that giveth any of his seed unto Molech, he shall surely be put to death. The people of the land shall stone him with the stones.
Okay, real quick. Sacrificing unto Molech was a Babylonian custom and a so-called deity where brothers and sisters, even of Israel and of all nations, especially Babylon, because they call different countries today the New Babylon, but the New Babylon is actually here in America. It's not necessarily Mecca and Medina. You understand? Babylon is here in America. You understand? Babylon is anywhere that's being all these customs are being took on. You understand? So like it, but when they sacrificed unto these idols, they would even offer their own family and children or whatever the case may be as burnt offerings unto these deities, right? So we know that if you ingesting smoke into your body or breathing over smoke, it doesn't matter if it's a so-called birthday candle. When you make a wish and blow out the candles, I want you to understand that the origin of this is honor and tribute to another deity, right? These are all the customs that our oppressors push upon us as a people. Because if you're a so-called black man, Native Indian man, and Hispanic man, you are the Israelite that the Bible is speaking of. You are a part of the 12 tribes of Israel that Moses spake unto. You understand? But Salakia, sir, if you'll continue reading.
Leviticus chapter 20, verse 3. And I will set my face against that man and will cut him off from among his people, because he hath not given of his seed unto Molech. Because he hath given of his seed unto Molech, to defile my sanctuary and to profane my holy name.
Okay. It's so many parents right now that will sit down 420, right? April 4th. April 20th, right? And they will share cigarettes with their children. They'll share vapes with their children, right? They'll share marijuana and pills or whatever the case may be to their children. And what this is doing, once again, is allowing that seed to be sacrificed spiritually to another deity. And this is indeed witchcraft and wizardry. This is indeed an abomination unto the Most High God. And the Lord said he shall set his face against you if you do these things.
Right.
Anyone that's out here following the lead of the oppressor or going along with the oppressor, it doesn't matter. Everyone has a story to tell. Everyone has demons that they fight on a daily basis. So if you truly love God, you're going to fight those demons every single day. It doesn't end. You understand? It's like needing food and water. You understand? It's an ongoing thing that you are going to perpetually have to do as long as you shall live. So even if it is an addiction to such things, an addiction to vaping, an addiction to cigarettes, an addiction to marijuana or any opioid or any other drug for that matter, right? Any other chemical dependency that you may have, you're going to have to fight it off every single day and be obedient to what the Most High God says. Whatever harsh thing can happen to you to make you want to go back to these things, you're going to have to be able to tell your own mind to hush. I say it to myself in a different way, you understand? But you're going to have to tell your mind, shut up, Shema in the Hebrew, you understand? But Salaki, real quick, if you'll continue reading, sir.
Leviticus chapter 20, verse 4. And if the people of the land do any ways hide their eyes from the man, when he giveth his seed unto Molech, and kill him not. Verse 5. Then I will set my face against that man and against his family, and will cut him off, and all that go whoring after him to commit a whoredom with Molech from among their people.
Okay, real quick. What one thing you got to understand is that if you allow your brother or your sister to constantly do these things, to do things contrary to the will of the Most High God in any aspect for that matter, the Lord is going to set his face against you and cut you off also and utterly destroy you. So it's critical that we all do what's pleasing in the sight of Most High God, and we catch our brother when we see him falling into things of this nature, falling into a trap of the oppressor, of the devil. You understand? Salaki, if you'll continue reading.
Leviticus chapter 20, verse 6. And the soul that turneth after such as have familiar spirits, and after wizards, to go a whoring after them, I will even set my face against that soul, and will cut him off from among his people.
Okay, this is simple and plain. Any of the various forms of witchcraft is, and everyone should know this, but it's still brothers and sisters in the world that want to follow the Babylonian zodiac or the Chinese zodiac for that matter, any zodiac, you understand? And they want to follow the customs of that people. They want to follow, having the crystals and stones and all that other stuff. That's that's the obvious form that we know is witchcraft. But also, I want to point out that taking any drug for the purpose of having that even the physical release and the chemical dependency that is creating within your brain is witchcraft, is wizardry. It's just the same as if you did get the crystals and stones or whatever the case may be, or if you sign your name in cursive, somebody signed their name around your name in cursive on a sheet of paper. It's just the same as all of this other stuff, or whatever the various forms they use as witchcraft. You understand? You gotta select it.
If I may, because what you're hitting on is so heavy, and on top of that, it's not funny, but man, them videos were showing people on Waka and the Waka Flocka or the Flocka and then the Sherm.
Right.
These people, they become a whole other person. I've seen them get hit by cars.
Right.
Get up and keep running.
Right.
You feel me? Them drugs, that's witchcraft.
It is.
Because ain't no normal person can get hit by no car and get up and keep getting on down the road.
Right. That's heavy. Because I saw a video of a sister who was on Flocka, and she was underneath the car, but she was acting as if someone was laying with her physically. You understand? On these drugs. You understand? And I just got to touch on the fact that so many brothers and sisters in the world rely on these things in terms of helping them to feel, what's the word, Salakia, to help them to reach ecstasy in terms of sex and being physical. You understand? They pop the perks, to go hard or go crazy, as they say. Yeah, I went crazy. I just went crazy, right? They say stuff like that. Treat me like Hitler, right? Because they attribute all this 420 nonsense to Hitler and the things that came along with his ideas and him cooking up methamphetamines and all of that stuff. It's all wizardry. It's one of the various forms of wizardry, right? And this is something that we can't keep on doing as a people. You understand? We got to turn from these ways and do what's pleasing in the sight of the Most High God. But Salaki, sir, if you'll continue reading.
Leviticus chapter 20, verse 7. Sanctify yourselves, therefore, and be ye holy, for I am Yahweh your power.
Pause right there. Sanctify yourselves, therefore, and be holy, for I am the Lord your God. Right? This is what the Lord said. Because when you're doing these things, you're making yourself unclean unto the Lord. When you do any of these things that are sacrifice and tribute unto other deities, even if it is something such as vaping, right? You're in error with the Most High God, and it's an abomination. It's wizardry. You should keep it far from you. you should keep it far from your home, far from your thought process, because it's something that does not please the Lord. But so, like, if you'll continue reading, sir.
Leviticus chapter 20, verse 8. And ye shall keep my statutes and do them. I am Yahweh, which sanctify you.
And you shall keep my there it goes about the law again. The Bible does nothing but constantly repeat itself. But this is in the law, that we don't do these things and be partakers of these things. Being partakers of so-called magic and witchcraft and all these other things that displease the Lord, whatever various form that it comes in, right, is being unclean and going against the laws of this book. So if you say you love God, you should not vape, you should not smoke, you should not put things into your body. It's different if you have a medical need. That's different. That's not the same as you taking an opioid for legitimate, not legitimate, but for recreational purposes and feeling good, and you understand, things of that nature. You understand? That's wizardry, and it's sacrifice unto idols and other gods. But Salaki, if you'll continue reading, sir.
Leviticus chapter 20, verse 9. For everyone that curseth his brother, curseth his father or his mother, shall surely be put to death. He that cursed his father or his mother, his blood shall be upon him.
Oh, Salaki. That's good on that one, sir. Salaki. If you'll go to Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 9.
Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 9. When thou art come into the land which Yahweh thy power giveth thee, thou shalt not learn to do after the abomination of those nations.
Pause right there. Yeah, I mean, that's simple and plain. But when you take on customs of smoking and doing all the other things that God doesn't like, and you sacrifice unto idols, knowingly or unknowingly, right? You are not to do it. You're being in error with the Most High God. But Salakia, if you'll continue reading, sir.
Done. Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 10. There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that useth divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch.
Okay, right there. It's right here. It's right here in the scriptures not to do these things and not to allow your children to fall into these things, right? To fall into and be passed through the fire of Moloch. Because back in the day, that's what they did. They would sacrifice unto these deities and to these gods, but guess what else? They would have them to pass the fire through themselves. What do I mean? Smoke, inhale, breathe in this smoke and breathe this smoke out, right? It was a part of it was actually a lot. There are a lot of cultures that this is their custom of coming of age also, in eternally pledging loyalty and fealty in their life and existence unto other deities. There's even a so-called Egyptian deity in most that follow Kemet. They know all about this. They called Amun Ra, where they would breathe over the smoke, and when they breathe this smoke, the smoke is supposedly to carry the wish or the prayer up to that deity, right? Up to the other dimension where that deity is. That was the purpose of what they were attempting to do with these things, right? So The Lord is saying that he hates these things. And these things are indeed divination, wizardry, so, magic. You understand? And God hates these things, and these things are filthy unto the Most High God. I want you to understand that. These things are filthy. Salaki. These things are filthy. And we're not to take on the customs of these things, because these are actually the customs of heathen nations. These are actually the customs of all the heathen nations and how they worship their deities. Now, Salakia, was it Monday? Salakia, no, Sunday. We had just taught a class on Easter, and that the Lord said that we shall utterly destroy the groves of the heathen nations and their altars and hew them down. And that we are not to worship the Most High God in the ways that the heathen nations worship their gods. Doing drugs and relying on drugs in the terms of getting high and feeling good and having that chemical dependency, that's exactly what that's doing. It's going in the ways of the other nations, which is a law in and of itself, and also tribute to other deities. But Salakia, real quick, was there any more on that side? Come on, sir. You'll continue reading.
It's like Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 11. Or a charmer, or a consultant with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. Verse 12. For all that do these things are an abomination unto Yahweh. And because these abominations, Yahweh thy power doth drive them out from before thee. Verse 13. Thou shalt be perfect with Yahweh thy power. Verse 14. For these nations which thou shalt possess hearken unto observers of times and unto diviners. But as for thee, the Lord thy power hath not suffered thee to do so.
Right there it is again. If you're a so-called black man, native Indian man, or Hispanic man, including Haitian and Jamaican, right? Colombian and Cuban, you are of the 12 tribes of Israel. And you're not to do any of these things. The Lord will not suffer you to do these things, because these are the customs and ways of other heathens in tribute to other deities. That's why it's so important. The Lord laid down foundation with us all the way down to the way that we should operate, the way we should dress, the relationships that we should get in, even all the way down to how we should wear our hair, the customs that we keep, right? Your personal relationship with God, because that's what a lot of brothers and sisters that call themselves Christians follow. They'll say that they got their own way, right? They'll say that the Lord knows their heart. Well, the Lord knowing your heart is you being obedient unto him. And if you're a follower of Christ and you're still smoking and vaping, you're still club hopping and pill popping, right? Not so much about the club hopping, but the pill popping, right? For the purpose of getting high or turning up, finna go up, finna go crazy, right? Or, any other various form of these witchcraft or taking drugs. You're in error with the Most High God. You're doing something that God hates. And just like the scripture says, the sinners of all of his people shall be destroyed, shall meet the sword. But Salakia, sir, was there any more on that one?
That's it.
Most High in Christ. Salakia, sir, if you'll go back to Leviticus and Leviticus 20, Salakia. Leviticus 20 and verse 23, actually.
Leviticus chapter 20, verse 23. And ye shall not walk in the manners of the nations, which I cast out before you.
Pause right there. This by itself covers so many different things. But specifically, in this case, following what they do and being so carnal, being so infatuated or enthralled or enchanted by the things that they hallucinate and see when on these drugs and partake of these drugs, the feelings that they receive, and of course the sexual deviancies that they feel like they fulfill when they're on these drugs, right? So, like, if you'll continue reading, sir.
Leviticus chapter 20, verse 23 continue. For they committed all the things, and therefore I abhorred them.
Right there, the Lord abhors these things. He hates these things. And the heathen nations commit all the things they love. Oh man, the heathen nations love cocaine. They love it, right? So, do you mean to tell me we're to walk in the way that we just read that we're not to walk in the ways that they do, because they're very carnal minded. They're not relying on the Most High God to be their power, to be their strength. They'll rely on magic and voodoo and witchcraft or whatever else, whatever other various form to help them maintain their mental stability. Right? Well, really, they're not really maintaining their mental stability, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. It's so many brothers and sisters in the world that's saying if they didn't have weed, that they would have been hurt somebody, or that they would do crazy things, or that they would fall into depression or remain broken, right? But we're not to walk in the ways that these other nations do, and be so carnal minded as to fall weak to the drugs the way they do. That's something that the heathen nations do. And this is another way that they pay tribute and sacrifice unto their gods. But Salakia, if you'll continue reading, sir.
Leviticus chapter 20, verse 24. But I have said unto you, ye shall inherit the land. It's like you shall inherit their land, and I will give it unto you to possess, a land that flows with milk and honey. I am Yahweh, your power, which have separated you from other people.
Right there, the Lord meant for the children, his chosen children, the so-called black man, Native Indian man, and Hispanic man, including the Haitian and Jamaican, Cuban and Colombian, you understand? These are the 12 tribes of Israel, and these are the children that God separated to be different from the world, to operate different about the world. So to operate different upon this earth. You understand? So if you'll continue reading, sir.
Leviticus chapter 20, verse 25. Ye shall therefore put difference between clean beasts and unclean, and between unclean fowls and clean. And ye shall not make your souls abominable by beast, or by fowl, or by any manner of living thing that creepeth on the ground, which I have separated from you as unclean.
So anything, and this is a similar to referring to the other nations. Any people that the Lord said was unclean, we're not to do as they do, because we're being separated from these things, from these people, from these beasts. You understand? We're being separated from them. All of these similitudes of the difference between these people, That's what that's what it's likening unto the with the different beasts and the creatures. You understand? This is talking about nations in this context. But the Christian pastor he wouldn't know that. you know. But Salakia, real quick, if you'll continue reading, sir.
God. Leviticus chapter 20, verse 26. And ye shall be holy unto me, for I am Yahweh, am holy, and have severed you from other people, that ye should be mine.
This is right here, and this is just, I gotta drive this point home real quick because it's always a great day to slice up all the propaganda and lies that Christianity spits out. But that right there proves that the Lord was speaking unto his people in the context of people, right? Right there. But Salakia, we're not to do these things. We're not to do these things. Salakia, sir, if you'll continue reading.
Leviticus chapter 20, verse 27. A man also or a woman that have a familiar spirit, or that is a wizard, shall surely be put to death.
So surely what?
Shall surely be put to death.
No, live.
Shall surely be put to death.
Shall surely go to the party and have fun.
They shall surely be put to death.
They shall surely be put to death. Salakia, if you'll continue reading, sir.
Leviticus chapter 20, verse 27 continue. They shall stone them with stones. Their blood shall be upon them.
Okay, right there. They shall be put to death. This is thus saith the Lord. So when you take on the customs of these heathen nations in any of the various forms, especially one of them being witchcraft and wizardry, divination, I want you to understand that one of the various forms of this would be ingesting and taking drugs with the purpose of receiving an ability or partying or fun. It doesn't really matter what the purpose is for. When you're doing these things, you're relying on something else that is not the power of the Most High God. You're not doing this for necessity or what do they call it? Medical purposes, right? You're doing this exclusively for recreational purposes, right? This is something that's contrary to the will of the Most High God. Something that he hates and that he abhors. You got to look at how all of these things are being brought to this nation. We didn't have the means in Salakia in the times 1920s to ship heroin over here in these boats with these boats and ships. We didn't have the means to fly and ship so much marijuana or cocaine. You understand? We didn't know. We didn't even know how to cook meth or make all these other things. We did not know. We wouldn't know anything about these drugs had not it been for the oppressor.
Right.
And that's something that I really got to drive that point home too. The customs of these ways are all customs of the oppressor. And not only do they do, like the scripture says in Romans 1 and Salakia, I believe it's at the end of Romans chapter 1, where it said, not only do they do all of these things that are punishable by death, they delight in all those that do them too. Yeah, man, party on, man. Party like a rock star, right? This is the thing that they perpetuate and that they constantly push out toward our people and promote. It's all throughout the media, all throughout music and in the mainstream media, the movies. They want us to perpetuate the things that they deify and that drugs are the so-called white man's God, are the so-called Chinese man's God. Opium, yes. The so-called Afghanistan's man's God. That is their deity. Right? Drugs are our oppressors. The authentic African, the Hamite, those are their deities. Those are their gods. They worship all of these things. They worship opium. They worship marijuana. They worship cocaine. They worship heroin. They worship flocka. They worship ecstasy. They worship perks. We're not to do these things and follow in the ways that they do. Now we're put through rough conditions and harsh conditions to the point of being psychologically and emotionally battered and damaged, and having even things of chemical dependency in the terms of being tempted by these things, because that's really what it is. They use the chemical dependency as biological warfare and also psychological warfare. If you can't function and think clearly unless you have something that I supply you, well, yes, you're going to come to me and you're going to operate in the way that I would have you operate. Another thing that brothers and sisters need to understand is that they want to keep us in error with the Most High God, which is another reason why in the so-called music industry, they push for these things so profusely. It's so much of a constant in the so-called music industry, right? And they perpetuate these ideas and these things. They constantly push it out. But Salakia, real quick, if you'll go to 1 Corinthians chapter 10, 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 9.
1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 9. Neither let us tempt Yahushua, as some of them also tempted and were destroyed of serpents.
Let us not tempt the Lord, because at that time there were those who tried to tempt the Lord, tried to tempt Yahushua, and they were put to death by serpents, right? So, like, if you'll continue reading, sir.
1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 10. Neither murmur ye, as some of them also murmured and were destroyed of the destroyer.
Okay, if you'll continue reading, sir.
Verse 11. Now all these things happen unto them for example, and they are written for our admonition. Admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come.
Okay, if you'll continue reading, sir.
1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 12. Wherefore let him that thinketh he standeth take heed lest he fall.
Okay, right there. Let all those that think they stand take heed lest they fall, right? They're going to be constant things that tempt you and constant things that make you, you understand, that displease the Lord, that you constantly going to have to fight against and tell your own mind to hush about. Oh, man, won't you go get you a hit? You had you a rough day. Won't you go get you a hit? Yeah, that would make you feel so much better dealing with the harsh conditions and the rough day that you have and the rough time that you have, these bills piling up, or you had, not having nowhere to be, or whatever the case may be, right? You lose a family member or something. Oh man, I can't believe this. Oh, man, I'm upset. I need a hit. I need to go get me a hit. Right? Take heed. If you think you stand, least you fall. So, like, if you'll continue reading, sir.
1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 11. Verse 12. Wherefore let him that thinketh he standeth take heed lest he fall. Verse 13. There hath no temptation taken you but such as in common to man. But Yahweh is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that ye are able,
Right there.
but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that ye may be able to bear it.
Okay. That's important because the Most High God saw fit for Commanding General Yohana to put brothers and sisters out here on the street. So like if brothers and sisters out here to be priests and prophets and to teach brothers and sisters the correct, rightly divide the word of God and the true oracles of the Most High God, and to inform you that if you are partaking of these things, ye be utterly destroyed, but also ye be abomination unto the Most High God. And how to turn from these things and how to not fall victim to these temptations. The water to you how for Commanding General Yohana. You understand? But Salaki, what verse was that last one?
Verse 13.
Come on. If you'll go ahead and continue reading, sir.
1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 14. Wherefore, my dearly beloved, flee from idolatry.
If you'll continue.
Verse 15. I speak as to the wise men, judge ye what I say. Verse 16. The cup of blessings which we bless is not in the communion. It's like it's not the communion of the blood of Yahushua. The bread which we break is not the communion of the body of Yahushua. For we being many are one bread and one body. For we are all partakers of that one bread. Verse 18. Behold, Israel, after the flesh, are not they which eat of the sacrifices partakers of the altar?
Pause right there. Now, if ye that partake of the sacrifice is not a part of the offer, I just got to drive that point home, because if you're doing things that are tribute and honoring tribute to other deities and other gods, and that are part of the various forms of witchcraft, you're being in error with the Most High God, and you're being a part of that sacrifice. You're being a part of that offering, even if it is celebrating or keeping these so-called holidays. I just had to say that part. But in this context, being a partaker of the wizardry, the divination, and the witchcraft, you understand? All these things that rely on other deities and power that is not the Most High God, right? Because the Lord is your power, and the Lord is what sanctifies you. The Lord saves us. We're justified through the Lord. You understand? Salakia, sir, if you'll continue reading.
1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 19. What say I then? That the idol is anything, or that which is offered in sacrifice to idols is anything?
Okay, right there. Salakia, was there any more on there? Right there. I mean, if you doing anything that is in the realm of those things, you are sacrificing to idols. If you're smoking, you're ingesting the smoke, breathing over the smoke, and so-called praying, right? Or making a wish and blowing out the candle, that's one of the various forms of witchcraft. But in this context, once again, we're talking about the partaking of drugs and using it for the psychedelic purposes and any of these purposes other than medical, right? So, if you'll go ahead and research.
1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 20. But I say that the thing which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to devils, and not to Yahweh. And I would not that ye should have fellowship with devils. Verse 21. Ye cannot drink the cup of Yahweh and the cup of devils. Ye cannot be partakers of Yahweh's table and the table of devils.
Okay. Right there. You cannot be partakers of the cup of the Lord and of the cup of and the cup of devils. So you was just turning up, smoking all the greeneries that you could, Saturday night, and then come early morning Sunday, you rushing to go to the church, right? You sacrificing. Not only is it that's wrong in so many ways, but not only are you doing these things, but then you constantly saying that you trying to eat of the cup of the Lord, which really Sunday worship is not eating of the cup of the Lord. I just had to say that part because the true Sabbath and the true day of worship is Saturday, but I just had to say that part real quick. But yes, you're eating, you're trying to eat of the cup of the Lord, and it's like a drink of the cup of the Lord and the cup of devils.
Salakia. For those who just kept Easter,
right?
That's the cup of devils. I mean, you're in there breaking bread, right? Eating stuff that sacrifice to idols. That means you're a partaker. you just read that. That's heavy what you're bringing out.
Come.
You can't sit here and say, "Oh, this is of the Lord." No,
it's not. It's not. You know, those who just celebrated Easter and just went to church Easter Sunday and prayed, they still, taking time out to make sure they come to wherever they're going smelling. Yesterday on 420, smelling real stanky. You understand? And for those who have went to even further extremes, they make sure they partake of all those things too. Yesterday,
right?
Honoring tribute to other deities, other gods, and also it's to the destruction of yourself and and the rest of our people. You understand? It's a thing of stupidity is what it is. And oftentimes you'll find that people that do stupid things, not only is it helping themselves, not helping themselves, it's not helping anyone. It's doing the opposite. You understand? But Salaki, if you'll go ahead and continue reading, sir.
Done. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 22. Do we provoke Yahweh to jealousy? Or are we stronger than he? Verse 23. All things are lawful for me, but all things are not expedient. All things are lawful for me, but all things edify not. Verse 24. Let no man seek his own, but every man another's wealth. Verse 25. Whatsoever is sold in the shambles, they eat, asking no questions for conscience sake. Verse 26. For the earth is Yahweh's, and the fullness thereof. Verse 27. If any of them that believe not bid you to feast, and ye be disposed to go, whatsoever is set before you, eat, asking no questions for conscience sake. Verse 28. But if any man say unto you, this is offered in sacrifice unto idols, eat not, for his sake that showed it, and for the conscience sake, for the earth is Yahweh's and the fullness thereof.
Okay, right there. I want to point out constantly that then the government won't tell you. They'll say that it's bad for the whole standpoint of the fact that they're not openly monetizing these things, right? But now they have what they call medical marijuana. They slap that word medical on it, and they sell these drugs legally, just like they do with the opioids, right? But now they have medical marijuana. Have it they way here soon, they'll have medical crack cocaine, medical meth, medical whatever other drug. You understand? Oh, ecstasy will be prescribed for depression or something like that, right? So they do all of these things, but they're not telling you that it's sacrificed unto idols. They're not telling you that it's honoring tribute to other deities. These are not for the purposes of keeping you alive or to keeping you healthy. You understand? These are all for the purposes of psychological warfare, biological warfare, and also keeping you in error with the Most High God in terms of sacrifice to idols. It's wizardry. It's magic. You understand? But Salaki, that concludes my class. We're gonna do the service announcements. Salaki. Now bear with me. Salaki.
Yeah, if you just put security announcements in the top search bar, it'll pull it up every time.
Come on. Men of Israel, Elijah. ISUPK security announcements. We are the ISUPK, started out of 1 West 125th Harlem, New York in 1969. Rule for new brothers and sisters. When a new brother or sister comes into the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They are to be saluted only. They are here to shed themselves of the world. If they need transportation, the teacher will arrange it. Salakia. 6 months after Salakia. 6 months they are to be saluted only. They are here to shed themselves of the world. If they need transportation, the teacher will arrange it. 6 months. After 6 months, if a brother or sister is interested in a brother or sister, he or she must get permission from the head to speak with brother or sister. There's another 6 months in which the brother and sister will court each other. After this 6 month period, the brother and sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithes, which is a commandment found in Numbers chapter 18, verse 21, in Malachi chapter 3, verses 8 through 10. Ma'ashara, which means 10 in Hebrew, 10% of every penny of the increase that the Lord gives you, give to the treasury department or the teacher priest fund. Free will offering, that's not mandatory. Whatsoever amount you would like to give. Now, we just had Passover. This past week, and right now we're still within the Feast of Unleavened Bread, where we don't partake of or have unleavened bread within our dwelling, and we don't eat and partake of the leavened bread. You understand? We have unleavened bread. Salaki. But Salaki, that concludes the announcements. Men of Israel, Sar, Salaki. Men of Israel, Mazah Shabbat, Amaitum, Barak,
Yahweh Hashem Yahshua Brakatah.
Yad Yamatah. Sar, turn to the sisters. Courtesy salute to the sisters. Amijah. Men of Israel. Majah Shabbat. Amijah. Barak. Yahweh Shamar. Alatah B'Hashem Yahushua. Yad Yamatah. Dismissed.
I'm sorry, I'm working on that.